Every day in Iowa City, I see people in passing, and I think to myself,
I wonder who that person is.
Did he grow up here?
Or did he come for college and
end up staying because he got a grant for his research?
Or maybe the love of his life.
As a townie, they
decided to raise their kids here.
In Iowa City, I see people every day.
And wonder,
what's her story?
And wonder
What she does for a living.
I see her around.
Walking her dog.
Maybe she's the writer of that
book I loved so much.
maybe she's a dancer.
A chef.
Iowa City
He's interesting like that.
The guy sitting next to you on the bus
could be your new favorite singer.
that lady who
Held the door open for you.
Could be a filmmaker.
A politician.
I see people.
I see people every day and wonder.
And wonder.
What's your story?
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 it's your story. Iowa City native Seth Bihun spent much of his early life living on a sailboat with his family. Later in life, he found himself living in the treetops, doing research to prove that the 2,000-year-old trees should be saved. Now, Seth Bihun is a professional tree surgeon, climbing trees with a chainsaw tied to his belt, a dangerous profession that he does with the ease of an acrobat. How did Seth's unconventional life living in the trees help him become the very grounded man that he is? This is his story. So Seth, you have this very dangerous job. You climb trees, you're a tree surgeon. What I find really interesting about you, though, is that your life kind of started off on a boat. You spent a lot of your early life on a sailboat. How does a kid that grew up on a sailboat end up with these tree climbing skills? Tell me a little bit about the boat years.
Well, my family lived in Iowa. I was born in Iowa City, Iowa, as a matter of fact. We lived in LaPorte City for a little while, and my dad always wanted to sail a boat, and my mother was up for it, amazingly enough, at that time. You know, having 3 older sisters, and I was the youngest. We first moved to Woods Hole, Massachusetts, and sailed up to Maine and lived in Maine for a little while. And that was when I was 1 month old. And we just took off and went and lived on a boat named Takata. And we lived there for probably about a year, and then we moved back to Iowa. We sold that boat because that was kind of his plan, is to fix up a boat, sell it, and then get another boat. So we moved back to Iowa in LaPorte City, Iowa. Then we lived in LaPorte City for a little while, and then meanwhile my dad bought another boat and was starting to fix that one up. And then we went to Woods Hole, Massachusetts again. And from there we sailed down to the British Bahama Virgin Islands, and I was 1 year old then.
Wow.
And it took 17 days. We sailed along the coast, then off the tip of Florida, down to the British Virgin Islands.
And how long did your family live on that boat in the ocean?
We lived there for 4 years, and then circumstances we moved back up here, I guess. But you know, I guess my tree climbing career started with being able to tie a knot, a bowline, blindfolded, because my dad was, you know, an avid sailor. So
yeah, that's what I was curious about. Like, you know, these sailing skills, how they would translate into climbing a tree. So obviously ropes are really, really important to what you do.
Ropes are, you know, 100% important. And I mean, I've grown up having a knowledge of ropes and pulleys and weight ratios and 3-to-1 ratios and whatnot my whole life. I can tie a bull in 3 seconds blindfolded, you know, behind my back if you want. So it didn't hurt that my sisters would say, "Go get that coconut up the palm trees," and I'd be the little island boy with bare feet that would climb up the palm tree and, you know, twist off a coconut and toss it down.
So tree climbing always just came naturally to you.
Yeah. My mother's name is Laura Jean. They tease her, Laura Jean the Monkey Queen, because her kids were a bunch of monkeys, is what they call us. So, and I fit right in that category. So.
Now, you must really care about trees if you're cutting them down, which maybe to some people that would sound like a contradiction, but the work you do, you're maintaining them, you're trimming them, you're making sure that they're healthy.
Well,
where did you get this knowledge of trees?
We came back to Iowa, and I lived here until I was 18. Throughout that whole time, I was always off in the woods exploring, examining trees, you know, creating knowledge. I mean, I got a, did a lot of work figuring out plants and biology. Biology was my strongest suit in school. I mean, I just loved biology, so I always, especially plant biology, that was probably one of my favorite classes in all of it. So when I turned 18, I took off and went to Oregon because I wanted to see the big trees. And through Oregon, I ended up via Evergreen College off-campus work-study program in the Willamette National Forest related to forest defense out there, protecting the old growth.
Yeah, I had heard that you actually lived in the trees and helped to protect them. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, it was kind of through a girlfriend at the time that I got involved.
That so often happens.
Yes, originally. And she got involved in it just by going on a hike. And she's like, okay, I'll go on this forest hike. And they took her out to what was a tree sit at the time that I had.
And a tree sit is somebody who's sitting in a tree to protect it.
This tree sit in particular is called Fall Creek. There was a small village. There was three tree sits, and they were connected by rope traverses, which means that they go from tree to tree. Bridges basically that are ropes that they can go from sit to sit, and that was surrounding what was the end of this logging road that they had already cut in the logging road. They put 3 tree sits on all sides of the logging road so that they couldn't start logging. And she went out and, you know, was like, this is really interesting, and, you know, you should check this out. And well, I went out and I'm like, I gotta do this. I gotta check this out. And I started just kind of like being part of that. I actually helped try to do a road blockade one time, and was unable to do the road blockade because the Forest Service, which is the forest cops, they came out and literally pulled me off of a small tree sit that was like blocking the road up further. Was this dangerous? Was this dangerous work? Were you potentially, you know, going to be arrested or I was arrested.
Or hurt? Yeah,
I was arrested.
So this is something you believed in. You believe in.
Yeah. Well, once I walked into this grove of trees that, I mean, you know, thousands-of-year-old trees, some of them, you know, 10 foot in diameter, 20 foot in as big as round as this porch area. I was, you know, it's a very humbling experience. You realize, you know, once again in the galaxy, you're just a speck of whatnot. But so I got pretty drawn in quick on that, and then actually getting arrested was the catalyst to me deciding that I really wanted to be involved.
And how long did you tree sit?
For 4 years.
You lived in a tree for 4 years. What was it like? Is it like a board, a hammock? What is that?
The one that I ended up being involved in was it was a triangular structure, kind of like a deck built, but it was triangular, and I think it was 12 by 12 by 12. You know, 3 sides, 12 foot across, and then it had ropes ran underneath it, and it was suspended between three very far apart trees. So it hung out in the middle of space at 160 feet. And the reason 160 feet is after 120 or something like that, the Forest Service climbers or whoever they hired to do it gets like double time and a half to go above that height. So that's where
strategic positioning.
Yeah, strategic positioning. So it cost them too much to just come in and extract us, and also the fact that, you know, they could easily kill one of us, either them or us.
And they don't want to do that.
No,
right.
They don't. So because that would look really bad. Weyerhaeuser would hate that. But
I'm sure that would draw too much attention to the issue if one of the nice tree sitters died in the process of sitting a tree.
Yeah, that's kind of the reason of being up there. Mm-hmm. Not to mention, we also did a lot of research. We did looking for retrievals, endangered species, spotted owls, spotted salamanders.